So we're working to try to follow up with some of the people who shared their experiences of surviving the storm with us. I went back on Sunday just to knock on the door and say hi, see how she was holding up, but we found no Virginia. In fact, all of the first floor units in her apartment building appeared empty in various stages of getting refurbished. But now as we take a look at some of the Skyfox drone video of the area, it looks as wonderful from up high as it should in Southwest Florida here in late March, but on the ground, we do see all the work going to that collective recovery. And Nadine, the big question is, you think of the thousands of people truly impacted, washed out of their homes, or, you know, they lost roofs or just couldn't live back in there. And we wonder how many Virginias are out there.
Yeah, and it's not only folks who lost their homes, but people lost everything, their businesses as well. We know that the shrimp industry is so important here on Fort Myers Beach. So after Hurricane Ian, the actual shrimp boats on San Carlos Island, they were piled on top of each other. And this was an image I'll never get out of my head coming back over the Matanzas Bridge. What we know now is as of last week, those boats are now all back on the water. Crews actually worked around the clock with the state to get all of those shrimp boats back on the water. And Chris, that was a feat I didn't know we would see.
Yeah, Fox 4's Elise Chingary has been covering this for months, speaking with several captains after the hurricane about how they were able to get back on the water and get back to their livelihoods.
Yeah, she's joining us live now. And Elise, these shrimpers really did want to get back to work. I mean, sure, they lost literally everything in the storm.
That's what all of the captains told me immediately when I came here after the hurricane. The captain said, we just want to get back to work. And they thought that it would take years to get these shrimping boats back out on the water, but it took less than 6 months. And even though we see a lot of these remnants still around the area of what we've gone through, you can see that those giant shrimping boats, well, they're back out here on the water. And that's because of all the extensive hard work day in and day out to try to get our shrimping industry back. Now, the Florida Division of Emergency Management tells me they've been able to refloat all 36 shrimping boats. It's actually cost the state more than $9.6 million. Now, many of these boats are staying. Some of them actually had to leave the area. We know 2 of these boats here are actually going to be heading to Alabama, and that's because I'm being told by the fleet manager it's just because too many of the docks have been destroyed by Hurricane Ian. So I also spoke with the director of the Florida Division of Emergency Management, who tells me the boats, they were just way too heavy to be lifted by helicopters, so they actually had to use all of those specialized cranes and barges.
Let me be very frank. The Division of Emergency Management nor state agencies have ever done a mission like this before. This is the first time ever. So we learned a lot as we were going through it. In fact, we're going to be putting out a new contract as a standby contract that's competitively procured on transportation and reflotation of boats and vessels. That's something that we learned from this disaster that we need to have in our quiver of arrows, if you will, to be able to use in the future.
Now, as I just told you, $9.6 million. So I'm sure tonight you're wondering, where does that money come from? Well, Director Guthrie explained it comes from the Emergency Response Preparedness Trust Fund. That is a trust fund that was set up with state legislature last year. There's $500 billion that's put into that fund, and then the legislature can determine if they want to go back in there and give more funding. And actually, in this case, they have 3 times for about $800 million. As you can see, all of these boats that are still in the water, FDEM says we are already approaching $3 billion in state resources and funding that's been allocated for this particular disaster. And now when we're talking about getting the shrimping industry back to what it was, that also means that it's getting back jobs for people like Captain Ricky. I'm sure many of you remember him. Our viewers, people on my social media continue to ask me, how is Ricky doing? Well, as you can see right here, guess what? We caught up with Captain Ricky today. I have his entire story coming up here on Fox 4 News at 6 o'clock. So be sure to tune in for that, because you want to hear how he's been doing over the past 6 months. Live here near Fort Myers Beach, Elise Chingary, Fox 4.